They are the middle and high school students who are passed along for years without effective intervention. By the time they reach 9th grade, literacy struggles affect every subject, often determine whether they stay in school at all. It's also worth noting that schools are already required under IDEA to identify and support students with learning disabilities well beyond elementary school. In fact, through age 21. That raises a real question about whether drawing the line at K through 6 reflects how our education system actually operates.
Representative Lawley for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to talk a little bit about what is the effect of doing this. The good bringer of the bill mentioned that, well, if they aren't reading by, 7th grade, it's problematic. And I agree with that. It is problematic. But since I've been in the legislature and on the education committee, we have every interim talked about literacy. And every interim, we have testimony. We hear testimony from children. We hear testimony from parents that are frustrated with not getting the help. And as their kids get older, the problems are exacerbate. Listen to a parent whose child committed suicide because of inability to read and not getting the help. So we talked about it, but there's not been many solutions offered by districts about, what they're willing to do. We're going to work on it. We're going to do these things. And I'm not saying they're not working on it. I'm just saying we're not making any progress. We're not seeing any of that effort in scores and things like that. We see this drop off, as was mentioned earlier, in the NAEP scores, and we're just letting that hang there. So I just want to give you some information about what it takes, what it happens when we remove and take out the 7 through 12. That would be approximately 50,000 secondary students without literacy protections if we don't have this law. Now, I'm not saying all 50,000 have a reading issue, but in there we know that there are high school students who cannot read at grade level. And it is creating significant problems for them in even graduating from high school. And every year we're told to wait, look, watch, we're going to do something. But every year kids have aged out who cannot read. We have a constitutional duty to consider if that's an adequate education. Is it an adequate education if people are graduating from high school and they can't read at grade level or even close in some cases to grade level? So some of the other things have been mentioned about outcomes. What happens if we don't do this? Listen, I know it may need some adjustment by districts, and I'm willing, if there is shown them they need some more money, I would support that as well. But we can't not continue to just think about the obstacles and just leave these kids behind. We can't just do nothing. That's my bottom line is, can we just keep doing nothing, kicking the can down the road for this higher age level? So I would have loved for some ideas to come out during the interim of alternatives for this grade level from 7 through 12. But we didn't really hear any ideas. So again, I'm on and against the amendment.
Representative Jarvis for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to let everybody know, at no point is it excluding 7th through 12th grade. Do you know in the state of Wyoming that reading interventionists in 7th through 12th grade are actually required to have a 2-year reading endorsement? They have to have that. Do you know there's no requirements K6 and this bill would actually take care of that? There are currently requirements for interventionists at the 7 through 12th grade level. That is a PTSB requirement at the state level. And also I would strongly encourage, if we want to do this, then here's a solution. Then we add the 7 through 12 into the professional development part of this bill, but not all of the requirements.
Representative Davis for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. My conversations with my local rural community, school boards and things like that is they see this need, but the problem is we do not have the dollars. It's hard to take a program such as this and put it out there to our communities, our small school districts, without putting some dollars in them for them to administer it. You know, they're doing the best they can with what dollars they have to work with. So without an appropriation on here to implement this, or at least get it started, I don't see much hope for it.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. My understanding, these arguments for and against are not mutually exclusive. To change from K-12 to K-6 doesn't mean the upper grades are left behind, but it's just a matter of methods. When you think about if a kid's in 6th or 8th grade and can't read, we're going to continue doing the same thing for the next 3 years and hope it gets better. I don't believe that's realistic. And if I understand the bringer of the amendment correctly, just aligning the bill with actual practice from an educator's perspective. So I'm on and for the amendment.
Representative Chestick for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I'll be honest, I'm still thinking about this bill. I'm not sure how I'm going to vote. I'm listening very carefully to the debate. It's very informative, and thank you all for all the great debate on this issue. I heard a comment earlier that this is an unfunded mandate, and I'm wondering, I just checked the fiscal note, and the fiscal note on the bill says no significant fiscal impact. So I'm wondering if it really is an unfunded mandate, or is it funded? I mean, we are paying for students. There's a lot of money going out of the state to fund school districts. So is that the funding for this event, for this training, and for this? So I'm very curious to hear about whether this is an unfunded mandate, or can this be handled internally with the money that's already been appropriated. I also want to remind the body that there's still another bill coming that based on recalibration, which may change the funding, and maybe we'll have a further conversation at that time.
Representative Larson Lloyd for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had some questions because I've had some concerns with this bill, and that yet it seems to be putting kind of, again, taking away local control from each district being able to identify their populations and the needs for individual reading plans and assessing that. We put into place the reading requirements up through grade 3, and I think since that's time, it's fair to suggest that we need more. And so if we take it up through grade 6, is there any evidence that says that's not enough, that gets us the reading remediation that we need to have for those students that will take them through 7 through 12 with the process and with the ability that the districts have as the good educators have identified? So and then we heard some conversation about IDEA and their requirements. So we're complying with those requirements now. If you've got a student on an IEP that with a reading deficiency, then we're already required to address that even up through 12th grade if that's on his IEP. So I think you kind of have to take that population out of the mix and just say those that are without an IEP, that are struggling with reading, how do we help them progress? And it seems reasonable to me that the next step would be to take it through grade 6, measure that, and determine with the other options that the districts have available to them that they could then apply that per district as they seem necessary to get them up through, to satisfy any deficiencies through grade 12. I've struggled with this bill a little bit, but yet I understand how important reading is. I think I support this amendment.
Representative Strzok for your first time.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to remind everyone there is already money for development training in the schools. It just depends on how they want to use them. So there is already that in place.
Representative Ottman for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am on and against the amendment, basically because from my own experience working in education for 17 years, and the rate of problems that some children have is one thing that I noticed over the years is that families these days are very mobile, where you could be in a district that has a lot of training, a lot of teachers, a lot of expertise. A lot of districts don't have that. And so the other thing is that as these children go into school, they may have been in a classroom that taught certain things as a priority. Then they move to another school and that changes. And when we listen to educators and admin of our districts, something that I have heard pronounced over and over again is middle school. I don't know what they learned in elementary school. They can't read. Then we get to high school and they say, I don't know what these middle schools are doing. These kids cannot read. Community college. I don't know what they learned in school because here they come and we have all these remediation classes that they need before we can even begin to teach them. What did they learn? This is a problem that needs to be looked at. We as a society believe in prevention. We have proved that over and over and over again with lots of different things we do, from medical on up. Why in the world we would see having 15 to 20-minute testing once a year as a big problem to prevent someone that desperately needs a little bit of help is beyond me. The thing is that if a student is identified as having a problem, they can learn and jump grade levels in 1 year. It's proven. They can jump it if they are identified. I know dyslexia is in the statute. I've heard that, and I've heard that again today, but it is not being implemented. Teachers don't come out of college knowing how to identify bad readers or readers, children that can't read very well. The frustration in going and sitting in classrooms day after day and having all of these different tests and these different things on the computer and not having anyone to ask questions because you're doing it online is overwhelming for our children. They need to be helped K-12. That's why we go to public school, K-12, is to learn. And so to say that they don't need this, look at the data. They do. Look at our reading scores in 10th grade. It's there. The proof is there. We do need to help these children at whatever level they are at. So I would say on and against the amendment.
Anyone else for their first time? Representative Gugamas for your first time.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. First or second?
Anyone else for their first time? First time, second time. Second time. Representative Gugamas.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. The way I look at this, we have a massive problem that's here and now. It's like in the health industry, you've got a patient that is very sick. And our education system in the literacy is very sick, to the point where we have students that are suicidal because they feel left behind. I am against the amendment because my view is we need a massive intervention ASAP in order to help these kids catch up. It's always been my understanding that our education system is for the students. That is priority number one. Schools were meant for students. I get the teachers' apprehension in this. It does maybe add some more stuff they have to do. But if it helps one kid, why not? I don't get the big problem, because after all, that's who we're doing this for, is for the kids. So I think that the amendment could be implemented down the road once we do get these students caught up, say for implement the bill for 6 years, get the patient to where they're able to stand on their own. And then we can look at maybe, okay, we don't need this full scale thing. We can ratchet it back to K through 6th. Because then at that point, K through 6, you will be able to adequately identify and help the students that need help. And then when they're 6 through 12, they will already be on track and it won't be a problem. So on and against the amendment, on and for the bill. Thank you.
Chairman Brown for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. So ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm going to be on and against all of the amendments coming forward. I want that to be clear. But this one right here is one of the biggest reasons that I'm against this, and it's going to be this very similar to all the others as we go through this. Literacy has been a topic of discussion now since I picked it up 6 years ago. And 6 years ago when the discussion started was you cannot come in here with an overwhelming, massive change to our literacy statutes. Give us a little bit of time. We'll work on it. We'll fix it. Give us 2 years and we'll work on it. We'll fix it. We'll get you better. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, we are now 6 years later and we are no better off. We have more statutes. The green books have gotten fuller, but our reading scores are not any better. And why is that? Because they would not allow us to do sweeping reform to our literacy statutes. This is sweeping reform. I'm tired of having this discussion. This bill, this committee, they worked hard and they heard from all the stakeholders, and this is the bill that came forward. This, I get it. The teachers are a little worried about this. Frankly, I'm more worried about the students they're teaching. They're the ones that are going to be left high and dry in the long run. They're the ones that can't pass SATs, ACTs with good scores that can get them into a good college. They're the ones that we're talking about here later in life that we're scared to death to take care of. I heard on the floor just a few seconds ago, if it takes care of just one kid, that was fantastic. I wish we would have had that conversation about Snapbucks and a few of those others a little while ago. But ladies and gentlemen, this is about reading. This sets these kids up for future life, period, plain and simple. K through 12 is what we're responsible for, not just K through 6. On and against.
Anyone else for their second time to the sponsor? Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. A couple of major items. First thing, I need to push back pretty hard on some things. Never said that we didn't need it. Didn't need this. I'm trying to refocus the efforts so that we can be better at what we do. And then I also have a major pushback on our system is sick. And that is generalizing to where I don't think that's going to do any of us any good. And I would challenge individuals that do believe that it's sick, spend some time in your local school districts and see exactly what's being done in positive. And again, K through 3, great provisions in this bill. Catch those after K3, move them to 6th grade, and then evaluate at that point. But man, we have overgeneralized in the pushback against this. And, you know, it's disheartening when I hear that after seeing the great things that are being done, but yet I come with an amendment to make it better, not to do away with it or to make it to where someone construes out of there that I'm saying we don't need it. That's fallen for a terrible negative or narrative that is not Wyoming. And so I would very much encourage you to think about this compromise. That's the key component. Keep it focused. It's our charge to do this, and I think this would keep it focused in that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 59. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. That amendment fails. Moving on to the next amendment, we are now on second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 59. Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. I move second reading Amendment 2 to House Bill 59. Was that right?
Senate file.
No. Senate file. Senate file. That's what the SF stands for.
There it is. So let's try it again.
Okay, how about I move the second reading Amendment 2 to Senate File 59? I love it. Thank you for your patience. This truly is, I will just call it a local control amendment, is what it is. What we're doing is avoiding the dramatic shift in power from the school districts to the state. Because as the bill is written right now, the curriculum restrictions, districts would be limited to resources that are strictly identified by our WDE. So that means all of the researched, very teacher creative, or even innovative new curriculum that they come up with to actually meet the students where they are. That's not going to be an option. So let's them maintain some of that control. It helps correct the loss of strategy. So we have a lot of individual teachers and districts who would no longer have that classroom autonomy and flexibility to adjust and meet students where they are. They're locked into it. This is what must be taught and in this order, which is not how we do right by our students. The other part of it with the mandated PDs, all teachers would be required to complete this decided professional development regardless of what their existing expertise is. So really, this is just the local control amendment. It shifts the control back away from the government and puts it back in with our local school districts and teachers, because those are the ones that have the direct contact with our kiddos and know where they are and how to meet them where they are. So let's give them that ability. Strongly encourage you to consider this kindly. And there are some representatives, I know you're opposed to it, so you don't even need to waste my time.
Chairman Andrews, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against this amendment, what this does is turn this bill really into more of a resolution, a suggestion that maybe we would hope to get to a better literacy rate someday. But I think it completely ignores the fact that we've been stagnant for 20 years on our NAEP scores. Thank you.
Anyone else for their first time? First time, second time back to the sponsor. Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. Have to address the last speaker, not true. All of those other things are already mandated by the state. Those are mandates. This isn't we're just going to let people do willy-nilly whatever they like. All of the mandates are still there. It just gives them the flexibility to operate at a local level to best meet the kids and fulfill the requirements of the mandate. It's already mandated. We're just keeping the control as to how to best meet the needs of the kids with the teachers.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are voting on second reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 59. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The amendment has failed. Moving on to second reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 59, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move second reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 59. This amendment deals with the term at risk. And at risk includes some risk and high risk students. We heard about this some yesterday. Tier 2 and Tier 3, some risk, high risk, respectively. And so the way this bill as written includes some risk students into the requirements for individual reading plans. And those were the plans that we heard yesterday that involve the paperwork, the parent meetings, the continuous monitoring, the Tier 2 interventions, pull those kids out of the classroom, even though that is not required. Tier 2, some risk children, usually that intervention can be handled in the classroom. And so we are asking, mandating that with this language, at risk, that those children also must be pulled out of the classroom, even as a Tier 3 high-risk child would be. And that is pull them out of the classroom, have skill-specific intervention, intensive intervention even. And I feel like if we change the wording, as you would see in your amendment, from high risk or at risk to identified as high risk, it would keep from tying up instructional time and for the children and for the educators, pulling a child out of the classroom that doesn't need to be pulled out of the classroom. And so it's pretty deep water for a cowboy to be talking about, but I've been learning a lot about it on the education committee and spending time in our schools. Appreciated what we heard earlier about spending time in the schools, and certainly has been good for me. And so I would appreciate your favorable consideration.
Representative Chestick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Now, I've spent all my teaching career at the university level, so I don't have the experience in K through 12 that many of you in this room do have. So with that preamble, let me apologize if this is a dumb question, but I have a question. The term at risk apparently is some kind of a term of art that is used in K through 12 that I don't necessarily understand. There are different levels of risk apparently. Does leaving the bill as is actually address one of the other concerns that I've heard about this bill, and that is local control? If we leave the bill as at risk, does that give the local authorities to determine for themselves what level of risk they need to address? What is at risk? So does this, and maybe I might be wrong, I'm here learning. Like I said, I haven't yet decided how I'm going to vote on any of these things. I'm learning a lot as I go along, but that's my question.
Representative Jarvis for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The answer to that is the nationally normed screeners use that term pretty widely. So when they say at risk, they all have a very definite cut score for which they identify the student as at risk. So it doesn't give the school district the leeway to determine who is at risk and who is not at risk. The screener does that. But screeners are always set up in where they identify kids who are have the skills needed at that point in time that aren't at a high risk or at any risk. Let me rephrase that. It's low risk is the term that they use in lieu of proficiency. So as kids are learning to read, they're saying these kids are low risk for reading failure. And then they use at risk widely for the other two categories, which are some risk and high risk. So at risk means both of those two categories. And some risk would be, and that's where I talked about, we use color codes, and these screeners use color codes as well in this world. Green means low risk. Yellow and red mean at risk. Yellow means some risk. Red means high risk.
Anyone else for their first time? Chairman Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against this amendment. I talked to many of the members of the stakeholder group of educators in Wyoming who put this bill together. And what I was told is that this amendment, what it really does is we are drilling a small hole through the check engine light on the dashboard and deciding that the best thing to do is wait for smoke to start coming out of the tailpipe before we start addressing the issues. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? First time, back to our second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to be really clear. What an IRP is, an individual reading plan, is a 4-page document that specifies exactly what that kid needs. That 4-page document has to be created with a team of people. So you will need to pull all of these people from their duties to be able to meet here, and according to this requirement, and their parent, for every single student that is some risk and high risk. So what this amendment really does is says, hey, if we're going to go to the level of work, let's just do that level of paperwork and requirements for the high-risk kids. But nowhere does this amendment take away the fact that if a kid is found to be at some risk, that kid absolutely in this bill has to still receive services. They just don't need a 4-page document with a whole lot of meetings at 3 times a year.
Anyone else for their second time? Second time, back to the bringer. I'm getting waved off. Ladies and gentlemen, we are voting on second reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 59. All those in favor, please say aye. No. The amendment has failed. Moving on to second reading amendment number 4 to Senate File 59. Representative Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that second reading amendment number 4 to House Bill, to Senate File 59 and ask for your favorable consideration. This is just that cleanup bill of the things that I talked about in my lovely 38-minute speech yesterday. This bill actually moved away from the things that we had found in education that weren't working and we needed clarity on. And last year we came to you with those amendments. So it just changes universal to screeners. It adds that S so you can use multiple screeners. It takes the guardian and puts in for students identified as at risk for poor reading outcomes by screeners and diagnostic assessments. On line 9 or on page 9, line 6, it inserts the identified at risk. So basically what this means is we only have to send mailers to the kids who are found at risk. So that's some risk and high risk, but not to the kids that are at low risk. So this reduces that actual fiscal cost of mailing to everybody three times a year. It actually just says you would have to mail to those people that are just at risk, or to the parents with students who are at risk. There's the universal to universal screeners. It just adds the S. It changes on page 10, line 16, supplemental to intervention, so that you're not required to use something different. You can use something different, but you can also use what you are currently using in the core as well. Page 10, line 19, just adds that language in there that teachers have to identify the actual skills deficits and remediate those specifically. Page 11, line 6, this is so we don't have to put kids who are walking in the door on 4-page IRPs, that we don't have to identify them until the middle of the year winter in kindergarten. And then we start from there by that identification process. So we have an opportunity to teach them first. Line 11, or page 11, line 14 I already went over that one. And then page 11, line 23, this says that the parent shall means has to be, given the opportunity to attend the IRP, but is given the opportunity to say, I can't make it, I don't want to be there, I trust you, whatever. But it says we have to notify them and give them that option, but they don't have to be there. Page 12, line 6 is after a child's been put on an IRP, you revisit the IRP once a year versus 4 pages of paperwork 3 times a year. That's it. And I ask for your favorable consideration.
Chairman Andrews for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against. This bill was put together with help of everyone from our Wyoming educators to people from the college that deals with education to the university over the hill. I would ask for not necessarily just trust in only our JEC, but for the people who worked and put so much time into this bill. I think this works how it is. This is not a cleanup that is necessary. And it's not unsubstantive either. Moving the early screeners to happen later ignores what some of these screeners can find. You know, it's not a screener in kindergarten saying whether they're literate or not. They're very quick screeners that they can use to identify these early signs before they know how to read, before they know the alphabet. There's lots of things that they can use to identify these things when it's really important and early on. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Back to the bringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It doesn't do that. That's not what these amendments do. They make it so that the paperwork, if a child is identified and when they walk in the door in kindergarten, they still receive the services. This bill says they still receive the services. They just don't have to do an IRP with a parent and an incredible amount of meeting with everybody to make this happen. So this is a cleanup that aligns it with current statute. What we found wasn't working and we needed to fix to make it so it could work, and that is it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are voting on second reading amendment number 4 to Senate File 59. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. That amendment fails. Senate File 59 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senate File 67 having been read 2 separate times. Oh, reading clerk, would you please read the bill?
Senate File 67, sponsored by Senator Larson. Wyoming State Guard amendments, an act relating to the Wyoming State Guard.
Senate File 67 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. We are at the order of business of bills on 3rd reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Pursuant to Rule 7-3, I would like to lay back the two following Senate files till next week, Monday. Senate File 88 and Senate File 119. That's an objection.
Hearing no objection,
Mr. Chairman,
Chairman Bear.
I object to the laying back of 119. See how this works. What's that? We've got a vote or something? I don't know. Never done it before.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're figuring out with the objection if this goes to a vote. We're going to have that answer in just a second. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the majority floor leader has requested the layback 88 and 119. We have an objection to 119, so it is a voice vote to start with. So all those in favor of Chairman Bear's objection to discuss 119 today, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The chair is in doubt. All those in favor of hearing 119 today on third reading, please rise.
Oh, come on. It's being delayed for some crappy reason, so we have plenty of time to go over this.
$29 twice, not counting me, correct? Yep. All those against, please rise. It's going to be a close one, so please stand still. Stay standing, folks. So that objection passes with a vote of 30 to 29. So now we're on consent. Yep. So we are ready for consent.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, It probably was a little unusual for someone that brings a motion to vote against it, but I was doing that as majority floor leader to facilitate members' desires to facilitate. They were asking for help with that. So as it is, 88 has been laid back. 119 will deal as a regular third reading. But the consent list, third reading consent list, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I move the third reading consent list consisting of the following Senate files. Senate File 19, Senate File 20, Senate File 22, Senate File 27, Senate File 48, Senate File 71, and Senate File 53.
Would anyone like any of these be removed from the consent list? Anyone? Not hearing any, will the reading clerk please, okay, would the reading clerk please read the bills on the consent list?
Senate File 19, sponsored by Senator Rothfuss. Epinephrine delivery methods, an act relating to public health and safety, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 20, sponsored by Blockchain. Data privacy, government entities, an act relating to the administration of government, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 22, sponsored by Blockchain. Unincorporated Nonprofit Associations Amendments, an act relating to corporations, partnerships, and associations, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 27, sponsored by Senator Landon. Leashed dogs for tracking black bear, an act relating to game and fish, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 48, sponsored by Senator Barlow. Stem Cell Freedom Act, an act relating to public health and safety, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 53, sponsored by Senator Crum. Keeping amateurism in high school athletics, an act relating to education, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming. Senate File 71, sponsored by Senator Olson. Wyoming Department of Homeland Security, an act relating to the administration of government, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the House? Chief Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson,
Aye.
Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, excused, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley,
Excused.
Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 19, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 20, are there any changes? Smith, aye to no. Lean, aye to no. Brown, Gary, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Wasserberger, aye to no. Pendergraft, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Lucas, aye to no. Strock, aye to no. Knapp, aye Knapp, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Guggenmoss, aye to no. Heft, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Bratton, aye to no. Weber, aye to no. Wharf, aye to no. Byron, aye to no. McCann, aye to no. Schmid, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Rodriguez Williams, aye to no. Brady, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Locke, no to aye. Locke? Confirm? Locke?
Locke.
Confirm? Locke, aye. Mr. Speaker? Are there any changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 34 aye, 25 no, 3 excused. As for Senate File 22, are there any changes? Smith, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Brown Gary, aye to no. Campbell Elisa, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Schmid, aye to no. Bratton, aye to no. Brady, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 51 aye, 8 no, 3 excused. As for Senate File 27, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 48, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 59 aye, 3 excused. As for Senate File 53, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Singh, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Brady, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 57 aye, 2 no, 3 excused. As for Senate File 71, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Brady, aye to no. Schmid, aye to no. McCann, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Strzok, aye to no. Brown Gary, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Lucas, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Riggins, aye to no. Guggenmoss, aye to no. Heft, aye to no. Wharf, aye to no. Webb, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Weber, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Rodriguez Williams, aye to no.
Chief.
Haroldson, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 37 aye, 22 no, 3 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File number 19, 20, 22, 27, 48, 53, and 71 have passed the House. We are at that order of business of bills on third reading and final passage. The first bill for our consideration is Senate File 119.
Mr. Speaker.
Reading clerk, if you'd please read. Oh, I'm sorry. Before you do that, reading clerk, Representative Larson Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If privilege of the floor, if I may, please.
Absolutely.
So, as you know, my good wife comes down here with me, thank heavens, and keeps me grounded when my head starts to swell, thinking that we're doing something that should be impressive, and I'm very grateful for her diligent work on that behalf. And this year, while she's up here in the gallery on the south side, she's joined with two of our children, our second son, Zach, and his family, Alyssa and Theodore, or Frederick, and Parley, and these two cute little twin girls that were born in Christmas time, Lizzie and Laura. And then our fourth son, Daniel, and his family, Amanda, stand up there, Daniel. Thank you. And his son Sam, there's Sam and Josh and Zane and little Gracie, who come down here to join the rest of the siblings that'll be showing up soon. These are 9 of the 23, and the others should be showing up. So we're pretty happy. Thank you.
Welcome to the People's House. Representative Larson, you are truly a blessed man. Amen. That's awesome. Representative Singh, privilege of the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. It's hard to follow a happy family like that. Wow. But in the South Gallery, folks, we have one of the members of the Cheyenne City Council, Mr. Mark Moody. And he's a friend and a champion for Cheyenne. So please give him a hand.
Okay, thank you very much. So, reading clerk, if you would please read in that bill.
Senate File 119, sponsored by Senator Hicks. Strategic Investments and Projects Account, Repeal 2. An act relating to public funds being enacted by the Legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Okay, we have amendments. First one is going to be third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 119. Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 119 and ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been really debating this bill quite a bit. And the good coach has brought up a very important point, is that it doesn't get across the finish line unless the chief executive gets it there as well. We need to have some support there for this measure. And I'm here to tell you that the sponsor of the bill has been in communication with the chief executive. And the chief executive is supportive of the idea of eliminating this account. But the good coach brought up an excellent point. When we eliminate the SIPA account, the money that flows into that from earnings off of our investments usually piles up to a considerable amount. And that allows the chief executive to profile that for capital construction projects. We have moved our capital construction out of that account, and we're doing it out of the general fund. But the general fund doesn't always have enough money for big projects. And so in order to help this bill get a little bit further down the line, what this amendment does is it gives the chief executive authorization to spend a larger percentage. Right now, it's 5% of our LSRA account.
Okay. This amendment bumps that up to 20%, which would give him the volume of dollars to do those capital construction. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is a profile. So when the governor creates his budget in November, he profiles where the money is going to come from to pay for his budget recommendation. But it's still this body and our colleagues down the hall that decide what we will spend the money on and where we will spend the money from. So it's just for his recommendation. We're moving it from 5% to 20%, and I'll ask for your aye vote.
Anyone for their first time? Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Members, let's keep in mind what I passed out to you yesterday. This amendment doesn't change any of that. You're still going to have 250 million less on the profile. What this does change, when we first wrote what is called an LSRA, which means Legislative Stabilization Reserve Account, it's supposed to stand out here by itself for when we have $20 oil and we go to 200 million tons of coal. Now we're going to make it like the old Brock account. We're going to stand right next to it. So we're going to have to adopt this amendment. It's got to go from, so when we originally wrote it, this account was 5%, that the governor could only profile 5%. This amendment moves it to 20. If this bill, by a miracle, gets passed and somehow gets a veto override, which I don't think is going to happen, it's got to have this in it. So I think we got to vote aye for this. This takes a horrible bill, and you spell horrible, Horrible, and it maybe takes the E off the end. It's still horrible. Right? So I'm going to vote for this amendment. We'll keep trying to make the bill better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro.
Anyone else for their first time? First time, second time, back to the bringer, getting a thumbs up. Ladies and gentlemen, we are voting on third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 119. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. That amendment does pass. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 119. Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. At this time, I'll move third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 119 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, what the goal of this amendment is, currently we have 2.5% that goes to general fund and 2.5% that goes to SIPA. What this does is guarantees that all 5% that we're currently getting actually gets to the general fund. If we pass this bill, only 2.5 is going to get there, from my understanding. So encourage you to vote aye, so that way we can continue to cover the ongoing expenses of government.
Chairman Bear, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we did something similar to this yesterday. The difference now is that we're talking about the general fund. I like the general fund portion of this. I drafted an amendment similar in that regard earlier. I decided that wasn't going to really work well with the chief executive. So that is an issue that we really should not go down. But the bigger part of this is that guarantee. We talked yesterday about how this guarantee keeps draining our reserve account. And so that's really the reason to say no to this. There's 2 reasons to say no, but the second one is the most important. We've got to stop draining these reserve accounts and let them build up so that our good investment team can go ahead and invest those funds and get great returns on them. Please vote no.
Representative Larson Lloyd, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This isn't draining a reserve account. And the reserve account will be at 7X in July. So this is just making sure that we're not putting that 2.5%, taking it off the table. So it would go to the reserve account. Once the reserve account's full, it tips to the permanent mineral trust fund. Once it's there, it's off the table for us to use. It's inviolate. So this is just, so we created this reserve account, or the PMTF, so that we have access to earnings. And so we use the 5-year 5% of the 5-year rolling average to help run the general operations of state government. And now we're taking part of that off, putting it back into permanent trust fund, which it will grow. I don't argue that. But we created it to help fund the general operations of state government. So I really appreciate the bringer of the amendment and think it puts it on the table for us to use as was designed. So on and for the amendment.
Representative Harshman for your first time.
Thank you. And a good representative from the, I can't say the county, Fremont County, and that is, what county is that again? I used to know all those. Okay. He made the point. We're not draining the reserve account. The reserve account is going to tip on July 1st, first time in like 10 years. It's 7X, the biggest it's been in state history, 245% of the 5% spending policy. It's working beautifully. We're investing it for a high rate of return because we made this big reserve account with COVID funds. So what was said by the good appropriations chair is not accurate. It's not draining the reserve account. So this amendment now, and you could even use my little picture I sent you before lunch. It's just going to make the whole 5% spending policy go to the general fund. This picture is for my next amendment. So there's a couple of issues. I mean, I'm going to vote for this, but I think you got to have, the only thing we got going into LSRA now is a little bit of like gaming money, not much. And we're working that account pretty hard, and we're turning it into a budget reserve account now that we're going to let the governor profile 20% of it. We also back up school funding with it. It's a pretty hard working account. I'm going to vote for this simply because it's not going to send our state into crisis. Then you're going to hear the appropriations chair say, oh, we don't have any money. We got to cut. And I'm going to vote for today's people and tomorrow's people, not something else. So this amendment will do the full 5% guaranteed spending policy amount, 5% of the 5-year average. So we took the E off horrible. We might take the L off now with this amendment. It'll still be horrible. But I think you can vote for this. And maybe the bill will have a chance with this amendment. Thank you.
Anyone else for their first time? First time, second time, second time to the bringer. Oh, Representative Larson Lloyd.
So we'll use another voice. I know we've heard from the previous speaker a lot as we've got down and really wrestled over this SIPA account. But I just want to remind everybody why we've created the reserve account. When we guarantee that 5% to run the operations of state government, there may be a time when the returns only allows us to do 3%. And if we're guaranteeing 5, then we have to retire or cash in some of the investments that we have early to meet the 5%, so we don't get the greatest rate of return. The treasurer had been after us for quite some time to protect that long-term investment and to create these reserve accounts so to cover up to 7 years of what normal operations would be, so that if we don't have enough to be 5%, let's say it's 3 again, we can pull out of the reserve account and leave the investments in the corpus to get us the greater return. Boom. Then the next year, if it's 6%, then the 1% goes back up and replenishes the reserve account. Because only 5% for this amendment can go to the general fund. So it's still safe. We're going to use the full 5%, and the good legislator from the county where the water's sweet Just puts it to the general fund for us to use. On and for the amendment.
Chairman Bear for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there was talk about having to cut, and you know me, I like to cut. But I will say that there are other relief valves. This account, the budget reserve account, is statutorily inviolate. That means this body and our colleagues down the hall can change that. And so we could choose, in the future legislators could choose to remove that inviolate status if they felt like they didn't want to cut spending, or that cutting spending wasn't capable of getting our finances in order. I would recommend that we try to get our budget lower before we try to remove that inviolate status. It is only statutorily inviolate, but the reason we made it statutorily inviolate was so that our investment team would have the confidence to put those funds into long-term investments. So if you do that, there's a price to be paid in those investments having to be fire sold, if you will. So I would recommend not using that, but you do have that option. And again, when you have a 5% guarantee, that means if the permanent mineral trust fund is not producing 5%, then this reserve account's going to make it the difference to get it to 5. And that's what will drain it down. It's a much smaller account. It's 1 billion instead of, and that's when it's fully full, not quite there yet, but 1 billion instead of 12 billion. So you can imagine how fast it'll drain it down, trying to make up for what the 12 billion should be making. On and against the amendment.
Representative Harshman, second time.
On and for, thank you. Second time. This little sheet was handed out to you. And it's just actually easier to see than the data book. So we got 12 billion in the corpus. It produces revenue. It goes down. This is the way we used to do it, 5% spending policy. Half of it, 2.5, went to the general fund, 1.25 LSRA, 1.25 SIPA. We passed this bill last year, very creative line item veto, made it into this new and current, half goes to the general fund, half goes to the SIPA. Okay, so what this amendment does is basically do the whole 5 to the general fund. Now, this on the right side of your paper, this 2 lines, one going up. If we have over 5% investment returns, it fills up the reserve account. If we have less than 5%, the dotted line coming down, and make sure that we know we have 5%. We're never going to have over 5% spend. It's a spending policy. Even if we make 15%, we're only going to spend 5. But for those years, we only make 2%. We're going to need a little backfill so we don't have to cut Medicare reimbursement rates, right? Or cut state employees or whatever. So that's the whole deal. It's about stability in the third least stable revenue state in the country, behind Alaska and North Dakota. That's all this is stability, to keep our trust funds working smart for us. Now, this part over 5%, reserve account 1 billion. Yeah, we went way over it this year. And so this thing in July 1st is going to tip several $100 million into the permanent corpus, which is on pace. I've been wearing this 4x10 button. I got you all new buttons coming, 16x30. We're going to double it from 8x18 to 16x30. So let's keep rocking that. And then that guarantees our people we can give tax relief. We don't have to cut services. We can keep going. But if this 2.5% thing with no guarantee on the other 2.5%, it affects your goldenrod. And then that affects our future decisions. And then that affects what some lawmakers say on this floor. Oh, we got to cut. We're in crisis. When we're not. And so that's the way this thing is supposed to work. Let's let it keep working for our people of Wyoming. And so I'm going to vote for this amendment to guarantee the full 5%. It's not perfect. It takes, like I said, maybe the L off horrible, but we'll keep working. Thank you. Please vote aye.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, members. So basically, if we vote this amendment down, we're going to have to go home and tell our constituents that rather than using our investments to fund today's problems, we put it into an inviolate account that we can't access. We put it into savings rather than using it for the normal operations of government. And then when we say we had to cut things in the next biennium or in bienniums down the road, we're going to say, well, they're going to say, why didn't you solve it at the time that you could have solved it? And so that's what this amendment does, is it solves it. If we don't pass this amendment, we're cutting ourselves off at the knees. So please vote aye. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're voting on third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 119. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. That amendment has failed. Division having been called, all those in favor of Senate File third reading amendment number 2 to Senate File 119, please rise. All those against, please rise. That amendment has failed with a vote of 33 to 24. Moving on to the next amendment, we have third reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 119. Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I'd move third reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 119. Members, this still eliminates the SIPA. So I'm not trying to keep the SIPA. I'm just trying to keep this 5% guarantee. So 2.5 will go to the general fund, 2.5 to the LSRA. We talked about it yesterday. I'm not going to talk about it. So unless somebody wants to call, I'll just call for the question on that. So we got
Chairman Bear.
I just recommend a no and call for the question.
Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend a strong aye. Strong aye for Wyoming and our people. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are voting on third reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 119. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. That amendment has failed. Division having been called. All those for third reading amendment number 3, please stand. All those against, please stand. Okay, Amendment 3 to Senate File 119 has failed with a vote of 34 to 24. Senate File 119 having been read three separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, Filer, Bornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson,
Aye.
Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, excused, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut,
Excused.
Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley,
Excused.
Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 39 aye, 19 no, 4 excused.
Senate File 119 having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 119 has passed the House. Nope, not yet. Standing committee reports are up next.
Senate File 21, sponsored by Blockchain, Wyoming Stable Token Amendments, an act relating to trade and commerce. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 21 engrossed. Wyoming Stable Token Amendments, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to pass. Ayes, Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Riggins, Schmid, Tarver, Weber. Representative Heiner, Chairman. Senate File 23, sponsored by Senator Schuler, outpatient examination and commitment length, an act relating to public health and safety. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 23 engrossed, outpatient examination and commitment length, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Clouston, Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez Williams, Thayer, Wasserberger, Yin. Representative Rodriguez Williams, Chairman. Senate File 35, sponsored by Senator Schuler. School District, Cell Phone and Smartwatch Policies, an act relating to education. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred Senate File 35 engrossed. School District, Cell Phone and Smartwatch Policies. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Erickson, Guggenmoss, Lawley, Strock, Williams. Noes, Representatives Bratton, Singh. Excused, Representative Kelly. Representative Andrew, Chairman. Senate File 81, sponsored by Recalibration. K through 12 Public School Finance 2, an act relating to K through 12 public school finance. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred Senate File 81 engrossed, K through 12 public school finance 2. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Guggenmoss, Lawley, Singh, Strock. Noes, Representatives Erickson and Williams. Excused, Representative Kelly. Representative Andrew, Chairman. Senate File 101, sponsored by Senator Beitman. Second Amendment Protection Act Amendments 3, an act relating to the protection of constitutional rights. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 101, engrossed. Second Amendment Protection Act Amendments 3. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Bear, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Smith. Noes, Representative Sherwood. Representative Bear, Chairman. Senate File 102, sponsored by Senator Boner. Wyoming Energy Transmission Study, an act relating to the Wyoming Energy Authority. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 102 engrossed. Wyoming Energy Transmission Study, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to do pass. Ayes. Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Riggins, Schmid, Tarver, Weber. Representative Heiner, Chairman. Senate File 123, sponsored by Senator Beitman. Wyoming Energy Dominance Fund, an act relating to the administration of government. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 123 engrossed, Wyoming Energy Dominance Fund. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Riggins, Schmid, Tarver, Weber. Representative Heiner, Chairman.
We have some re-referrals. Chairman Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Temp. I'd like to re-refer Senate File 123 engrossed to Committee number 2.
Okay. Chairman Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I'd like to re-refer Senate File 81 to Committee number 2, Appropriations.
Thank you. Okay. We are at that order of business of request to concur with Senate amendments to House bills. The first one for our consideration is message number 206 to House Joint number 2. Vice Chairman Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Temp. So I would move message number 26, concurrence request to House Joint Resolution 2, and ask for your aye vote on concurrence. So basically what the other body did was just add additional language into the resolutions. So on page 1, it talks about the percentages of state land owned by the federal government in the state of Wyoming. It just included also in that definition subsurface. So the language will also include 69% of the subsurface of the state of Wyoming. And then also it included towards the end there, the statement about distributions. So this statement will provide for revenue distribution consistent with federal statutory formulas, provided that 2% administrative cost, which is current deduction authorized under the federal statute, shall be allocated to and retained by the state of Wyoming, said the federal government. So it just adds more language into the bill. The chairman of that committee was agreeable, so ask for your aye on concurrence.
Any discussion on concurrence? Any discussion? Seeing no one moving to the mic, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Joint number 2. A majority of the elected members is required. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Campbell Kevin,
Excused.
Chestick, Clauston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson,
Excused.
Filer,
Excused.
Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson,
Aye.
Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, excused, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez-Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washat, excused, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, excused, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 55 aye, 7 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Joint Number 2. The next message for our consideration is message number 204 to House Bill 105. Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move concurrence request for House Bill 105, message number 204, and ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, our colleagues down the hall added $5 million to the K through 12 capital construction. Again, this is funded out of the school foundation program. This $5 million is for security, ballards, vestibules, that type of thing. There was a back and forth throughout the time that this bill traversed the body, and we had landed on $5 million. Our colleagues down the hall went with 10 million, which was the highest number we ever discussed about this. And so we would just recommend going with that $10 million and putting these monies aside. They put the money aside, and it usually takes several years for it to all be taken up, and it's done through grants. So recommend an aye vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, just to give you some clarification, if you go to the bill and over on the right-hand side in the digest, you can see these concurrences if you have any questions. Or you can also go down into that calendar portion, and if you pull up the calendar for the day, you can also see the concurrences where you'll see Senate, House, and then there you'll find the concurrences as well, just so you can follow along with what we're doing. So we are discussing concurrence on House Bill 105. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 105. A majority of the elected members is required. Will the chief clerk please call the roll?
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin,
Absent.
Chestick, Plouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, excused, Filer,
Absent.
Bornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson,
Aye.
Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, excused, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez-Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washat, excused, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, excused, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 55 aye, 5 excused, 2 absent.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 105. The next message for our consideration is message number 205 to House Bill 107. Representative or Chairman Bear for that explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move concurrence request on House Bill 107, message number 205. Ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the direct distribution from sales tax. We discussed this earlier today. This body came up with a 7% sales tax of the state's portion of the sales tax going to this local government distribution. And our colleagues down the hall came up with 8%. We've discussed how this is associated with what we're doing in the budget. So I recommend concurring with the Senate's position of 8% for direct distribution of sales tax.
Any discussion? Any discussion on message number 205 to House Bill 107? Seeing no discussion, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 107. A majority of the elected members is required. Chief Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown, Gary, Brown, Landon, Byron, Campbell, Lisa, Campbell, Kevin,
Absent.
Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, excused, Filer,
Absent.
Bornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson,
Aye.
Harshman, Heiner, repeat, Heft, Jarvis, I'm sorry, Johnson, excused, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storr, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, excused, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, excused, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 55 aye, 5 excused, 2 absent.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill number 107. And the next message for our consideration is message number 215 on House Bill number 89, Vice Chairman Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move message 215. This is on House Bill 9, grooming of children, offenses and amendments. So we had some changes that came from the Senate. First, in their committee of the whole, they went on line 2, or I'm sorry, blah, 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 tongue twister. They went on page 2, line 8, and they deleted that entirely. And then on the next line, they deleted all the way through 6-2-318, which was a exception from the definition of grooming as it related to other sexual crimes. And then on page 7, line 12, deleted the words $20,000 and changed the fine to $10,000. And then they had a second reading amendment that deleted the language on page 5, line 5. It deleted the words "or the minor's guardian parent." And then on page 5, line 6, it deleted the word "guardian." And so for further explanation, I would turn it over to the representative from the center of the state.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. On and in favor of concurrence and ask for your aye vote. This does no harm to the bill and it helps clean it up to make it a well-enforced law for protection of our children. Thank you for the collaborative work to get it to where it's at.
Any other discussion? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 89. A majority of the elected members is required. The Chief Clerk, please call the roll. House Bill 9. That is my fault. So we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 9. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clauston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, excused, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson,
Aye.
Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, excused, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storr, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washat, excused, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, excused, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 57 aye, 5 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill number 9. The next message for our consideration is message number 212 to House Bill 36, Chairman Bear. Two 12. Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for the little bit of confusion there. Forgot that we need to get a vote to go to a conference committee. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is our House Bill 36 Forestry Division Wildland Fire Modules. This body decided to accept the JAC position when we created this bill. There was not a public, what was it? It's called a public information officer. And our colleagues down the hall added a public information officer. And so we'd like to go and talk that over with them. So I'd encourage a no vote.
Any discussion? Minority Floor Leader Yin for discussion on House Bill 36 and concurrence.
Mr. Speaker Pro Temp, so I hope everyone pulls up the concurrence report. So this is probably could be one of the worst fire years that we have in the entire state's history. And so I think it is super important that we have this PIO position to literally let people know if there is fire in their area and that there is risk that happens. I think the idea that we shouldn't have this position is frankly very risky, and would ask that you actually concur with the concurrence report from the other side. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Temp.
Anyone else for their first time? First time, Representative Conley.
Thank you. I would recommend that we concur. Right now, even in Johnson County, we've got a fire going up in Crazy Woman Canyon. It's over 120 acres, and we're having trouble getting resources. Like the helicopters are not available. So again, I can't stress how important this public information officer piece is. if you do not have this position to work under the incident command staff, then there can be all kinds of problems with public being informed on evacuations, where roads are closed, where you can't have access to, and it makes your fire a lot smoother when it comes to working with the public if you have this position.
Representative Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I also am going to ask for a aye vote on this concurrence, folks. As someone that's been involved in these large scale incidents and our communities at home are wondering what's going on, this is the person that brings that information to you when everyone else is out working the line. So I appreciate the Good Bringers recommendation to go have a discussion down the hallway, but I think we can solve this quite quickly and ask for your aye vote.
Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Incident Command Management System, there's always going to have a public information officer. It's required as part of the process. So it depends where level it's going to be. If it depending, whoever has the highest command point, they will have the PIO for that. And there's going to be one every time. So that's just information.
Anyone else for
Required.
their first time?
I see.
Anyone else? Second time? Okay. We're voting on the motion to not to concur. What? Oh, sorry. Back to the bringer. Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to point out that the good previous speaker said that there are lots of resources for this, filling in this particular requirement. So it's not going to go undone. Many of your local governments already have this position. This is a state position. And we denied it because those local resources usually fill in this, and they know what's going on the ground a lot better than a state person coming in from outside of that area. But also, I think the good representative from Buffalo country pointed out that, you know, we need to get money into the air resources and things like that. So let's put our money where it really works for us and stops the fires. We've been doing that. We're bringing on 2 new teams this year. First time ever that the state has had its own firefighting team. So wildland firefighting team. So we're really making some big advances, growing government a little bit, but we're going to be fighting fires like we've never fought them before, on and against this. Vote no.
So ladies and gentlemen, we are voting at this point. So a no vote would send us over to have a conversation with our colleagues down the hall. An aye vote would be to concur and to move on and allow this to go to the chief executive's desk. So again, a no vote to go down and have a conversation, an aye vote to move it on. We are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill number 36. A majority of the elected members is required. Chief Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ellamand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, no. Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Plouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, excused, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson,
no.
Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, excused, Kelly, excused, Knapp, Larson Lloyd,
Excused.
Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez-Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strzok, Stivar, no. Tarver, Thayer, Washut, excused, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, excused. Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Lean, aye. To no, further changes. Further changes. Lucas? Lucas, aye. To no, further changes. Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 24 aye, 32 no, 6 excused.
By your vote, you have voted not to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill number 36. And our committee is going to be Haroldson, Angelo Smith, Haroldson Chair. And just before anyone gets excited, I didn't make the list. The next message for our consideration is message number 216 to House Bill 111. Vice Chair Pendergraph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. This involves House Bill 11, which is state-funded capital construction. The body down the hall has asked for an entire new project. It's in the bill, so I guess I can say this is Gillette College wants an NZ Center. They're adding another 16 million general funds, or building funds, excuse me, and 16 million in monies that they have apparently got promised to them, PR. I'm going to ask you to vote no on this so we can talk about, there are some details in the history of this, and I'd ask you to vote no so that we can talk this over.
Anyone for their first time discussing the concurrence? Anyone? I'm going to just wait for a second as some members are grabbing some. Representative Harshman.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, maybe the member of appropriations can be really clear on what the funding source is. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Vice Chairman Pendergraph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Funds from this general fund appropriation shall be conditioned upon matching funds, the ratio of 1-to-1. Right now, it's sitting at 32 million for the entire project.
Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 111. A majority of the elected members is required. Would the chief clerk please call the roll?
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Erickson, excused, Filer, Fornstrom, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson,
No.
Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, excused, Kelly, excused, Knapp, repeat, Larson Lloyd, excused, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, excused, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Wharf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, excused, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 7 aye, 49 no, 6 excused.
By your vote, you have voted not to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 111. The committee is going to be Pendergraft, Lean, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Chair. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Members, we need a few bills from general file through COW, so we have the pipeline still flowing when we get to Monday. We don't just need to get a few bills moving. So we're going to do COW now, and we'll try and get you out before 5 o'clock. So, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I move that the House resolve itself into Committee of the Whole.
Chairman J.D. Williams.
The Committee of the Whole will come to order. The first bill for our consideration is Senate File 70. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 70, sponsored by Water. Omnibus Water Bill Construction, an act relating to water development projects. Mr. Speaker, your Committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 70 engrossed. Omnibus Water Bill Construction. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Davis, Hornstrom, Johnson, Ottman, Provenza, Schmid, Strock, Winter. Representative Winter, Chairman. This bill was re-referred to Committee number 2, Appropriations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 70 engrossed. Omnibus Water Bill Construction. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Bear, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Sherwood, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Co-Chairman Banks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 70 do pass. And I will explain the bill. So, body, as promised, here is the next of the omnibus water bills. So if you recall, we passed the planning bill out of this body. And next comes the construction bill. So again, if you look through this, I have another one of these binders on my desk if anybody wants to look through and kind of see how all the projects play out. So basically, this is all the projects in your communities, from municipal water systems to different irrigation projects, rehabilitation projects, all of those kind of things. Again, we draw funds from water account 1, 2, and 3. And if you read through the bill, you'll notice that we do both grants and loans. These projects have been well vetted. They were brought before the Water Development Commission. They were worked through the process with the help of the Water Development Office. They then came before the Select Water Committee, and then finally the House and Senate Agriculture Committees, and now they're here the body to vote upon. So yeah, Omnibus Water Bill Construction, very important bill. Ask for your favorable consideration, body.
Representative Strock.
I would like to move, sorry, Chairman. Thank you. I would like to move Committee of the Whole, Amendment number 1 to Senate File 70. And it is on page 55, line 12. And we would like to, after 2027, beginning April 1st, 2026, funds from the appropriation made in this paragraph shall not be expended or used to exercise eminent domain for the purpose of this project.
Is there any discussion on the amendment? Question being called. My apologies.
Howdy.
Representative Davis.
Mr. Chairman, how are you today?
Discussion, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Folks, not that I don't disagree with this amendment, but the time frame, I think we've got things that are working at water development right now. And if we cut the head off this, we'll lose all these negotiations that are going on currently. So I would say if the good bringer would maybe change the date on that to maybe give them a year to plan and make sure none of these things are going on, and then they know what's in. But April 1st of 2026, that's not very far off. That's just cutting them off right away. So I would ask for a no vote on your amendment.
Any more discussion? Representative Strzok?
Thank you, Chairman. I actually not sure what to say. You caught me off guard, so wish we had talked about that before.
Representative Davis.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to work with the representative back there so we could bring a proper amendment forward on the next reading. Thank you.
Representative Strzok.
Thank you. I am in agreement to that. So does that mean I withdraw this? I would like to withdraw this amendment.
Any objection? Are you ready for the question on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Co-Chairman Banks' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 70 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 70 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 90. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 90, sponsored by Senator Brennan. School facilities, use fees, an act relating to education. Mr. Speaker, your committee member for education, to whom is referred Senate File 90 engrossed. School facilities, use fees. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Guggenmoss, Lawley, Singh, Strzok, Williams. Excuse, Representative Kelly. Representative Andrew, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 90 do pass. And I turn over the explanation to the co-sponsor.
Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How are you today?
I'm well, Representative. We are in a time constraint.
That's good. Mr. Chairman, this this bill puts some guardrails on the rental fees that can be charged by school districts to youth clubs and activities not sponsored by the district. So essentially, it would limit the fees to not exceed the hourly rate of personnel, equipment, utility, and supply costs that are actually incurred by the district. It's important to note that this does not require a district to charge fees. As a personal note, I had a constituent reach out to me with concerns about the fees that were being proposed in a local district to be charged to a local youth swim club. The amount that they were looking at was about $30,000 for the use, impacting over 100 children that do their learn to swim programs and on all the way up to competitive swimmers looking for additional practice and training. So the concern is that they are taxpayers whose money goes towards the construction and maintenance of these facilities. So this bill allows that the extra use that does cost some money to the district gets charged, but the rates should not be exorbitant. Just the actual costs incurred during the time that the clubs are using the facilities.
Any further discussion? Representative Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Question to someone who could maybe address this. If there's a club using the facility and there's an injury occurs, just on who's liable? Is the school district liable? Any idea? Was any of that discussion in committee? Thank you.
Representative Lane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is about the by request for an itemized bill. Is there a way that somebody would know if they're paying exorbitant fees if it's by request, or should that just be a standard part of paying the fees for the use of the facility?
Mr. Chairman,
Representative
Brad,
Brad.
I sit in the back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do know, I texted my business manager, and the answer to the insurance question from him is that groups get their own insurance and they name the school as an additional insured under their policy.
Representative Chestick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In further answer, I agree with the previous speaker. In further answer, the person who would be liable is the person who caused the injury. Just the fact that an injury happens on somebody's property does not necessarily mean the property owner was liable unless the property owner did something wrong that caused the injury. So, but that is consistent with the insurance question that was just spoken to.
Further discussion? Ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Andrews' motion that the committee of the whole, when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with a recommendation that Senate File 90 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 90 is passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 105. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 105, sponsored by Senator Jones. Real estate brokers, duties and disclosure amendments. An act relating to real estate brokers and salespersons. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 7, corporations, elections, and political subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 105 engrossed. Real estate brokers, duties and disclosure amendments. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation to pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Heft, Johnson, Knapp, Locke, Lucas, Webb, Weber, Yin. Representative Knapp, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Locke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House or Senate File 105 do pass. And I yield the floor to the representative from Laramie County to discuss the bill.
Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope your afternoon is going well. Senate File 105 is a narrow clarification to Wyoming's real estate licensing statutes. Apparently, sometimes folks feel compelled to sign a contract with a realtor when they merely want to look at a home that is for sale, and they are not required to do so, but sometimes they are led to feel that they must do so. And so this clarifies some terminology within that transaction type. We've been in compliance since 1998 with our agency legislation, but some states have gotten a little clearer on their language, and so we are looking to do that too. 2 clarifications: the difference between customer and client. Under current law, it's confusing from time to time when an individual is considered to be a client or when he's considered to be a customer. And that distinction determines what the duties and disclosures are for each of those situations. A client is one who has signed an agency agreement with a realtor, with a licensee. A customer is an individual that has not signed an agency agreement. This bill tightens that language so that both licensees and consumers clearly understand the relationship from the outset. Second, it specifies that if there is an agency agreement establishing an agency relationship, that individual, and if it's not signed, that individual is considered to be a customer and is not obligated to have an agency relationship because they haven't signed one yet. The bill does not expand any regulations. It does not create any new requirements. It does not increase fees. It simply removes some ambiguity and just cleans up the statutory language. I encourage your support of this bill. Thank you.
Chairman Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for this, folks, I'm licensed in this area, and this is a good bill to clean up some language and helps greatly with some compliance. So please vote aye.
Further discussion? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Locke's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 105 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 105 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 14. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 14, sponsored by Education, Literacy Position for K-3 Reading Program, an act relating to authorization of full-time literacy position for the Department of Education. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred Senate File 14 engrossed, literacy position for K-3 reading program. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Guggenmoss, Lawley, Singh, Strzok. Excused, Representatives Kelly and Williams. Representative Andrew, Chairman. This bill was re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 14 engrossed, literacy position for K-3 reading program. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Haroldson, Sherwood. Noes, Representatives Bear, Pendergraft, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 14 do pass, and I will explain the bill. Senate File 14 establishes a dedicated position in the Department of Education to oversee and implement the K-3 reading program. Currently, these duties are required in law, and there's no full-time person assigned to carry them out. The bill includes an appropriation that allows the department flexibility to access outside expertise in support of those responsibilities. To be specific about what the position is responsible for, under existing law, the department is required to identify screening instruments to detect early reading difficulties, identify assessments to monitor student reading progress, ensure districts are using evidence-based literacy curricula designed to state standards, collect and review district screening results, and ensure parents receive clear explanations when a student shows signs of reading difficulty, assist districts with individualized reading plans, review annual district school reports measuring progress towards the statutory goal of 85% of students reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade, and many more. If Senate File 59 passes, those duties will expand further, but the position is needed regardless of the outcome of that bill. And Mr. Chairman, at this time, I would like to move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 14 and ask for your favorable consideration. This amendment removes the $300,000 900 series appropriation for outside expertise. After further discussion with the department that oversees education and members of this body, it's clear that the core need for this bill is the position itself and not the additional spending authority. The department has indicated that they can meet the immediate needs of the program using the existing resources and internal expertise, and that no new equipment is required for the position. The amendment simply narrows the appropriation for the $240,000 position funding for 2 years. Thank you.
Discussion on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clarification, just compare. So on the fiscal note for 2026, it says 540,000. So what you're saying is 300,000 will come off of that to make it 240 to align with what we have in 27 and 28? Because I think there's 270. And so first question is the 540,000 for the fiscal note for 2026, it will go down to 240. That was my first question, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the appropriation for the biennium would be $240,000 if this amendment were adopted.
Representative Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow up. So then that will leave 3 months to spend 240,000, which seems a little off because then I look at the next fiscal note for 27 and 28, we're spending 270,000 each year. So I'm just trying to figure out why so much after you just clarification that there will be no additional supplies and things needed. So just checking the numbers. Thank you.
Chairman Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This brings the total appropriation down to nothing but the actual position, which is a $120,000 salary per year. So it removes the other two parts of this. Thank you.
Chairman Bear.
I think if I heard the previous speaker correctly, that they were looking for the difference between year one and year two. And I didn't get the fiscal note up fast enough, but what I believe you're seeing is what we call TRP, the technology that's necessary for a position. Usually when we hire a position, it's a one-time cost for a computer, software, that type of thing. And then that cost does not show up in the future years for that position.
Further discussion? Seeing none, are we ready for the question on the amendment? Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, say aye. Opposed, no. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Andrews' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 14 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 14 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 25. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 25, sponsored by Travel. Landowner license limits and limited quota hunt areas, an act relating to game and fish. Mr. Speaker, you're at Committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 25 engrossed. Landowner license limits and limited quota hunt areas. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Byron, Campbell, Connolly, Harshman, Jarvis, Provenza, Storer, Thayer. Noes, Representative Wharf. Representative Byron, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure, Chairman Byron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 25 do pass. And they further move the adoption of the Standing Committee Amendment. For the explanation of the Standing Committee Amendment, I'll turn it over to the good representative from the center part of the state.
Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The amendment, you just moved it. So the amendment actually just removes language that the Senate, I think, Standing Committee put in that weakened the bill. So we removed that.
Representative Byron.
That's correct.
Any discussion on the amendment? Yeah. Representative Wharf.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was unable to make this meeting. You heard it read that I was a no vote on this bill. I was actually upstairs testifying on another bill that we were presenting. I wanted to let the body know that with this amendment, I am an aye, and I would encourage you to support this and then support the bill. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question?
Question.
My apologies. Representative Haroldson. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a question, I think I'm understanding this. This means if a landowner owns 160 acres or more in an area where a limited draw license is available, the commission cannot lower the tag amount to zero. Basically, they have to allow them to receive a limited quota tag. Is that correct? Chairman Byron?
On the amendment, Chairman, what we're talking about now, right now, folks, this came clean out of the interim committee. The Senate, our friends down the hall, excuse me for saying that, our friends down the hall added an amendment, and we just decided on our side to bring it back to where it originally came out of the interim committee. There were some other amendments discussed, and I think there could potentially be more amendments coming, but we thought it was better to give the commission the ability to promulgate rules and regs. Folks, what we're dealing with right now there are areas where, not many, but in certain species, there are areas where close to, if not all the tags were potentially going to landowners, therefore not allowing as many tags to go to sportsmen that are not landowners. So this is really a first step in allowing the commission to just have oversight, if you will, on this. There was often discussed a number of different percentages to try to change that up, but really on a case-by-case basis and on a species-by-species basis, this is at least what our committee decided was the best way to move forward as we amended this out. So I hope that muddies it a little more.
Representative Campbell. Let's vote on the amendment. Question on the amendment. Question being called. All those in favor of standing amendment number 1, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a little background on this, and I'll try and keep it brief. We assembled the Governor's Wyoming Wildlife Task Force back in 2021, and I was very fortunate to serve on that task force. One of the issues that came up was this idea of, putting a cap on the amount of landowner licenses that may be issued in a limited quota area. And we spent a significant amount of time talking to landowners, talking to sportsmen, a lot of time. And the recommendation coming out of the task force was that, the commission really needs to go through and work within each of those to set a cap. So that was what we put in motion. And then the Game and Fish Commission came back to us and said, we don't have the authority to do that. So what this piece of legislation does, the only thing it does, is gives our Game and Fish Commission the authority to then promulgate rules and look at what that might look like. They would still have to follow the same process that they are obligated to follow. So they go into each of the areas, have public comment periods, have time for that interaction between sportsmen and landowners, and then decide based on the health of the herds, all of those other science-based issues, take all of that into consideration and determine whether a cap would be appropriate or not. So this bill doesn't do anything except give them the authority to do so. So pretty simple, straight up bill, and would appreciate a vote.
Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Byron's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, does so with the recommendation that Senate File 25 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 25 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 26. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 26, sponsored by Travel. Game and Fish Property Tax Exemption Amendments, an act relating to taxation and revenue. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 26. Game and Fish Property Tax Exemption Amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Byron, Campbell, Connolly, Harshman, Jarvis, Provenza, Storer, Thayer, Wharf. Representative Byron, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Byron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 26 do pass, and with the explanation will stick with me. Folks, what this does is kind of brings Game and Fish Department back into the same realm of a lot of our other agencies within the state that will not be paying property tax on their offices. Now, this was discussed a lot last year, and there was a big concern about what about all their duty stations, if you folks know what those are. So traditionally, we used to have a game warden duty station that are often houses in your communities. That is no longer in this bill, so those will still be taxed, just like everything else. The argument for the bill, which I support, is that you as a sports person are paying for a tag, and then the fees collected in that tag are then going to pay for the property taxes for the regional offices. So it really just brings everyone in line with other state agencies. And with that, I can stand for questions and ask for favorable consideration.
Discussion? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Byron's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 26 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 26 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 84. The reading clerk will read the bill. Gotcha. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 44. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 44, sponsored by Management Council. Gambling amendments, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 3 Revenue, to whom is referred Senate File 44 engrossed gambling amendments, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Lean, Locke, Lucas, Riggins, Storer, Stivar, Wharf. Noes, Representative Campbell. Representative Locke, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Locke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that the House or the Senate File 44 do pass. And I yield the floor to Representative from County 1.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you today is Senate File 44, and it's going to amend some gambling amendments that are already in law. This will help our great commission that oversees our gaming to be able to help our district attorneys to be able to enforce the laws that are on our books. There was some ambiguity in these definitions, and so the Select Gaming Committee took the opportunity to clean them up, and we ask for your favorable consideration.
Further discussion? You ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Locke's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that, yes, Chairman? That Senate File 44 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 44 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 46. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 46, sponsored by Management Council. Skill-based amusement games, liquor, or licensed liquor establishments, an act relating to gaming. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 3 Revenue, to whom is referred Senate File 46 engrossed. Skill-based amusement games, licensed liquor establishment. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Campbell, Lean, Locke, Lucas, Riggins, Storer, Stivar, Wharf. Representative Locke, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure, Chairman Locke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 46 do pass, and I yield the floor to the Representative from the previous bill.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask for your favorable consideration. When it comes to gaming, there's multiple types of machines, and this one takes up skills-based games. In some of your communities, you may have seen these surface in grocery stores. This bill is to correct that. It gives our good commission the authority to make sure that they go inside the liquor store, so they are only available to those people 21 and over, and they are not a site for those families that are gathering their groceries. Please consider an aye vote. Thank you.
Further discussion? Chairman Bear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. Is this excluding those places where you can't consume the alcohol on the premises? It looks like it's restricting it to a new special group of only where you can consume it on site.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. Yes, so there's different types of liquor licenses, and this would make it so that the establishments that are licensed or permitted to sell alcoholic liquor or malt beverages, that these amusement games shall only be located in the physical area of the alcohol store. So if the grocery store that has a packaged liquor license still wants to keep these skills games, they will have to move them inside the liquor store itself. And if you are at a bar or grill, they can still have their skills games where in a location that consumes alcohol on site. So it enables you to have them in both locations, but only available to folks 21 and over.
Further discussion? Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Locke's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 46 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 46 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 107. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 107, sponsored by Senator Nethercott, Motor Vehicle Registration and Plate Issuance System, an act relating to motor vehicles. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 107, Motor Vehicle Registration and Plate Issuance System. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Noes, Representative Banks. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 107 do pass. Further move the adoption. Oh, you know what? It's not a standing committee amendment. I almost moved the wrong type of amendment there, Mr. Chairman. So what I will do is I will explain the bill quickly, and then I do have a Committee of the Whole amendment that I'd like to explain to the body. So, ladies and gentlemen, what this bill is doing is, if you've been in the legislature for any more than 3 or 4 years, you remember a component system with the department that handles our transportation called RIS, or the Revenue Information System. And we've been working diligently over the past 5 or 6 years to pull that department off of their old mainframe system and move them into a new, more modern system. At the same time, we've also been working with the county treasurers and trying to say we would like everybody to be operational on the same system. And right now, if you go from Platte County to Niobrara County, those two systems don't talk with each other. And so you have no idea if you've registered a vehicle in Niobrara or Platte County. So what this bill is doing is it's actually bringing everybody into the same system. It will be then housed at the state level. And then all of the treasurers will have access to put information into the system and pull that same information out. So there will be one unified system across the state. The difference that we have here is it was identified during committee that there is concern about some of the information being able to be accessed, number one, from the treasurers, and we want to make sure that that happens and we have a good cohesive discussion between the department and the treasurer's office. And then the other thing that was identified is there is going to be a cost associated with this system and every type of a quote unquote transaction that occurs from that mainframe system to these county levels. So that is where the Committee of the Whole amendment comes from. And Mr. Chairman, I'll move Committee of the Whole amendment number 1, and I will make sure we also are talking on the corrected copy. The first portion of this amendment, as you notice here, is that it says that we're going to make sure that the two main areas that we're focusing on, which is the treasurers and the Department of Transportation, are in fact going to work together, and that we are comfortable with how everything will reconcile in the end. That's the first portion. The second portion, I think, is probably the more important portion, especially for the counties that were worried about this, is it sounds like the fee that's going to be associated with this could be anywhere between $2 and $5 every time they pull or upload this system information going to and from the cloud-based software. That is still up for debate at this point. We do not know how much that's going to be, and I think it's really important to also dial back and look at the enactment date of this bill is on July 1st, but there's also a delayed implementation of this not until July of 2028. And that is because this is going to take some significant time to grab the three systems that are ultimately working right now together and put them back all on one system. So at the end of the day, what you have is the last portion of the amendment says that transaction fee will not be borne by the county treasurers at this point, and that will be absorbed, and we will have that determination set either through rule or however that will be handled. But that is where we're going to come down on the amendment, is to say right now it will not be borne by the county treasurers at this point. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that is the bill and the amendment. And if there's any questions on the amendment, which I don't see anybody jumping up, I would call for the question.
Question being called on the amendment. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, say aye. Opposed, no. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 107 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 107 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 56. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 56, sponsored by Senator Landon. Kratom Product Regulation, an act relating to food and drugs. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 56, Kratom Product Regulation, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Excused, Representative Filer and Kelly. Representative Washit, Chairman. This bill was re-referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2 Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 56, Kratom Product Regulation, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation do pass. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Bear, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Sherwood, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Representative Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 56 do pass. And I further move and for explanation of the bill, I turn it over to the representative from Campbell County.
Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope you're doing well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll describe the bill before the amendments. So first of all, what is Kratom? So Kratom is a tropical tree in Southeast Asia. Consuming its leaves, if it's at a low dose, is a stimulant. At a high dose, it's a sedative. And it can lead to psychological problems and physiological dependence. So these leaves are either crushed and smoked. They can be put in a tea. They can be put in gel capsules. And that's what you're seeing extensively throughout Wyoming. Kratom is often described as synthetic heroin. It's highly addictive, and opioid-like effects in high doses have been compared to fentanyl. So we heard in testimony, the nurses that take care of our schools have said it's been found across their state in elementary schools. It's also been attributed to 9 deaths in Wyoming. What this bill does, there's 24 states that have either taken regulation steps or have completely banned Kratom. And that was talked about in our body across the hall. Should they just ban it? What they decided to do was make it a regulation that no one under 21 can store or sell Kratom to anymore. Also, they put in here that the packages with Kratom have to have warning labels similar to what we see in other products that are sold. The bill's 19 pages, so I'd ask everyone to kind of review it. It goes through the definitions, the regulations, and penalties. It does have a fiscal impact. The money there would be used for helping law enforcement to go through and do the checks. Is also the agriculture department will have to test these products. So, you know, I see this as a vital bill for Wyoming, trying to keep these products out of the hands of our children, anybody under 21. So I'll ask for your favorable support. Please look through it and we can discuss it later. There are amendments on it. Thank you.
Chairman Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And at this time, I would move the adoption of Standing Committee Amendment number 1. Sorry, I'm pulling it up right now. To Senate File 56. Oh, thank you. So on page, we did a couple of things in committee. On page 4, line 19, we inserted the word delivers after distributes. On page 5, line 6, we changed the percentages for the threshold of the 7.0, which is one of the more prominent components of the intoxicating factors with Kratom. So we changed that threshold from 2% to 0.2%. And then on page 5, line 18, we did what was similar on page 4, after distributes, inserts, delivers. Then on page 8, line 8, we put after the word product, inserted or delivers a Kratom product to a person less than 21 years of age for consistency throughout the bill. And then on page 8, line 14, we changed that 2% threshold to a 0.2% threshold.
Discussion on the amendment? Representative Yin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, one of the amendments, which was the 2% to 0.2%, was because there was a thought that natural kratom has under 0.2% and not under 2%. What we heard back from the agency that was going to be tasked with testing this is that they can't actually test the difference between under 0.2%. So I'm going to divide the amendment so we can, I will ask you to vote no on the 2% to 0.2%, and then the rest of the amendment is perfectly fine. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I move to divide Standing Committee Amendment number 1 with Division 1 being lines 3 and 4, and lines 12 to 14, and then Division 2 being the rest of the amendment.
Representative Yin, Division 2 is lines 1 and 2 and lines 5 through 11. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Division
No,
2.
Mr. Chairman is correct that Division 2 is lines 1, 2, and 6 through 11. I think that is what he said.
Which division would you like to start with, Representative Yin?
Division 1, please, Mr. Chairman. So members, again, this Division 1 is just about the testability of 2% versus 0.2%. Concentrated Kratom is going to be higher than 2%. It's just going to be higher than 2%. The 2% number is at least a testable number, and we'll be able to recognize the difference between natural Kratom leaf and concentrated Kratom drugs that are killing people. So I would ask you to vote no on Division number 1.
Chairman Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also ask for you to vote no on this division, and this is me eating the humble pie as I suggested this in committee. So please vote no on this division.
Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you for letting me in under the wire. I'm going to ask that you vote yes, that you vote aye. Effectively, this makes a ban because the products that are out there now are above that threshold. And quite frankly, this is not something we need on our streets.
Any more discussion on division number one? Representative Yan.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So a ban was actually discussed in the original chamber, but I don't think that, I mean, what I worry about is the bill dying a fiery death when at the very least we do need to regulate the substance. So would ask you again to vote no on division number one so we can make sure that this bill stays going. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more discussion on division? Representative Chestick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we did discuss this in judiciary and discussed whether we should have a ban or whether we should have regulation. That's a policy decision, but the idea here is we did hear some testimony from some individuals so the product that is available in vape shops and other places in the state is the natural leaf that's not been enhanced or adulterated is a term used in the bill. It's the adulterated and enhanced version that is really dangerous, which is to be banned by the way this is worded. But there are people who are using the unadulterated, the natural state, which is very low dose, and have been getting some relief from pain and other. There are some legitimate uses for this. So the choice was made both in the body across the way and in our committee to leave it as a regulation, not an outright ban. And therefore, I am supporting, I would urge a no vote on division number one and an aye vote on the bill.
Are you ready for the question on division number one? Question being called. All those in favor of division number one, say aye. Those opposed, no. Division number one has failed. Back on division number two. Question being called. All those in favor of division number two, please say aye. Opposed, no. Division number two has been adopted. We're back on the bill.
Mr.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move committee of the whole amendment number one to Senate File 56 and ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, this just gives us another funding source if possible. This allows the agency to use opioid settlement funds if they're available and if it meets the criteria. And so you'll just see three different places where we grab that funding and make that available to the department. So I'd ask for your aye vote.
Any discussion on this amendment? You ready for the question? Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By removing the funds out of that and put them into use in here, what do we do with the opioid? I guess is my question, if that's where those funds are directed to go.
Chairman Bear.
This is just using those funds if they're available. Those funds are already being used for many different purposes. This doesn't affect those other purposes. This just says if it's available for this purpose, they can use it for this.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Yen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I actually inquired with Department of Health about this. Our opioid funds, there's a memo of how it can be used. It basically does need to be used for purposes regarding opioids. But prevention purposes are valid. The only thing is because Kratom isn't officially an opioid. To use opioid settlement funds, it has to be concurrently used to help prevent opioid use as well. So it's possible that they can make it work and make it use it. I don't think it hurts the bill to have the opioid funds be used concurrently if it helps both with opioid prevention and kratom prevention. So would vote aye.
Question being called. All those in favor of Representative Singh's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that my apologies. All those in favor of committee of the whole amendment number 1, say aye. Opposed? No. Committee of the whole amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Chairman Rodriguez Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and opposed to the bill. In my opinion, Mr. Chairman, this is a flawed bill. It appears to be written by the Kratom lobbyist. Doesn't address the public health issue. The labeling requirements that are in the bill gives the impression that this is for medical use. The reality is that the substance, Kratom, meets all of the requirements that technically it could be a Schedule I drug. On and opposed to the bill.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I look at this bill, I think it's a step in the right direction to take care of people. While I agree we should be putting this to a total ban, and this bill does not do that, there are very clear instances for which we need to regulate Kratom. One of them being that $12,000 worth of merchandise was recently stolen this week within my community. This is essentially synthetic heroin. We had a young mother who was struggling to cope with her newborn baby, went into a shop and purchased Kratom. She ended up overdosing. So what this does is it creates a respiratory reflux to where you can't breathe and you don't recognize that you're not breathing. And if somebody's not there to resuscitate you or get you to a hospital, you'll die. That happened this week in my community. What also happened this year in my community is a 15-month-old that needed 3 Narcan shots in order to survive. That baby ended up in Denver in ICU. She's alive. She'll have some delays. That mom is not being charged with a drug conviction because Kratom's not regulated. We have to do something to take care of our people. These are very real instances that are occurring just within my community. So I know that they're also happening within your community because you can walk into a gas station and purchase this. It is happening to our youth and it is happening to our adults. It's also a major depressant. This Kratom has to be regulated at some form. So do I think that this is the perfect bill? Absolutely not. I'm in favor of a total prohibition because we outlaw heroin as well. But I think that this is a step in the right direction to be able to help the people that need it the most and be able to help them find the substance abuse prevention and training that they need. So please vote aye in favor of the bill.
Further discussion, Chairman Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, the merits of being worried about legitimizing any sort of narcotic, that's a totally fair argument. And so I'm not really going to belabor that point. However, I will say that if we don't pass this bill, 18-year-olds in the state of Wyoming will be able to purchase this product. And if we do pass this bill, we'll raise that bar to 21. And so that's just the reality of whether or not we pass this bill. I do think that legitimizing any sort of intoxicant or addictive substance, that is obviously problematic for society, but that isn't the bill that we have here right now. So hope that helps.
Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Singh's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 56 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 56 has passed the committee of the whole.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Yes, Majority Floor Leader.
I move that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Reading clerk, please read the report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 70 do pass. Senate File 90 do pass. Senate File 105 do pass. Senate File 14 do pass amended. Senate File 25 do pass amended. Senate File 26 do pass. Senate File 44 do pass. Senate File 46 do pass. Senate File 107 do pass amended. Senate File 56 do pass amended. Representative Williams, Chairman.
I move the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
We have a motion. All those in favor of accepting the Committee of the Whole report, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. That passes. Representative Williams. At this time, we are going to be signing enrolled acts. One moment, I'm being told. We are at that order of business of signing of enrolled acts. The reading clerk will please read the enrolled act.
House Enrolled Act Number 5, being original House Bill 112. An act relating to state-funded capital construction, terminating a task force, depositing unexpended funds and as specified, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
I am so signing. I'm so signing. Yep. I've so signed House Bill 112. Next one is House Enrolled Act 6, originally House Bill 106. Reading clerk, please read the bill.
House Enrolled Act Number 6, being original House Bill 106, an act relating to the state forester, authorizing positions, providing for an appropriation for the Forestry Conservation Program inmate crew, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act Number 6, originally House Bill 106. I have so signed.
House Enrolled Act Number 7, being original House Bill 32, an act relating to motor vehicles, requiring operators of commercial motor vehicles to demonstrate proficiency in the English language, prohibiting operators of commercial motor vehicles who cannot demonstrate English language proficiency from operating commercial motor vehicles as specified, providing criminal penalties, providing definitions, making conforming amendments, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act Number 7, originally House Bill 32. I have so signed.
House Enrolled Act Number 8, being original House Bill 8, an act relating to crimes and offenses, providing for felony penalties for stalking offenses committed against minors, and providing for an effective date being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 8, originally House Bill 8. I have so signed.
House Enrolled Act number 9 being original House Bill 26, an act relating to motor vehicles, exempting motor vehicles owned by tribal governments from paying county and state registration fees, requiring the Department of Transportation to issue distinctive license plates for vehicles owned by tribal governments, and providing for an effective date being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
I am now signing Enrolled Act number 9, original House Bill 26. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Posey. Standing committee reports.
Senate File 113, sponsored by Senator Crago. 2026 election hand count comparison, an act relating to elections. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 113 engrossed. 2026 election hand count comparison, respectfully report, same back to the House with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Heft, Johnson, Knapp, Locke, Lucas, Weber. Noes, Representative Yen. Excused, Representative Webb. Representative Knapp, Chairman.
Now messages from the Senate.
Message 209. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 8, stalking of minors, ayes 31. Message 210. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 26, vehicle registration fees, tribal governments, ayes 29, noes 2. Message 211. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 32, English proficiency, commercial motor vehicle drivers, ayes 31. Message 212. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 36, Forestry Division Wildland Fire Modules. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 30, noes 1. The Senate respectfully ask the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 213. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 106, Smoke Buster Module Leaders, ayes 29, noes 2. Message 214. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 112, Riverton State Office Task Force, sunset, ayes 30. Message 215. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 9, Grooming of Children, Offenses and Amendments. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 31. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 216. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 111, State-Funded Capital Construction. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 26, noes 5. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Okay. That clears the deck. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker Pro Temp, I move that the House adjourn until Monday, whatever date that is, and at 10 o'clock. What date is that?
March 2nd.
March 2nd already, March 2nd.
You have heard the motion. Committee announcements.
I got one.
But
thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. On Monday, March 2nd, at 8 a.m., the Minerals Committee number 9 will meet to consider 4 Senate files, number 99, 54, 55, and 126.
Vice Chairman Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Monday, March 2nd at 8 a.m., Your Judiciary Committee will be meeting to talk about the Wyoming False Claims Act.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 2, Appropriations, will be meeting Monday, March 2nd at 8 a.m. in the State Capitol Room E301 and online to discuss the Raven Act, Senate File 85, and re-referrals, Senate File 110, Residential Property Tax Revisions, Senate File 84, and that's Voluntary Water Conservation Program, Senate File 111, Select Committee on Gaming, and re-referrals as assigned and as time permits. And then your JCC for appropriations will be meeting at 9:30 a.m. in the Capitol Room E301 online to discuss Senate File 1 and House Bill 1 General Government Appropriations.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 10 will meet Monday morning at 8 a.m. in room 3. We have 4 bills on the agenda. We have Senate Joint Resolution number 6, Shared Parenting Day, Senate File 12, Wyoming Pharmacy Act amendments, Senate File 106, Welfare Fraud Prevention Act amendments, and Senate File 122, Medical Necessity Standard.
Chairman Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Your committee number 4, Education, will meet Monday, March 2nd upon noon recess in Capitol Extension Room 3 to hear 3 bills. Senate File 72, Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact, Senate File 104, Higher Education Research Funding, and Senate Joint 5, Convention of...
Vice Chair Pendergraph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Your committee number 2 will continue to meet Monday, March 2, upon noon recess. This meeting will be to finish up anything that we were unable to get to on Monday morning, plus any referrals that have been assigned beyond that. Additionally, your committee number 2 will meet Monday, March 2nd upon adjournment for executive session.
Any other announcements? Again, just for everyone watching, Monday is our last day to get bills out of committee. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. That passes. I will see you guys Monday morning, 10 a.m.